Last Christmas I set the table for 8 people. You know how many came? None. My own children promised, again, but at the last minute they backed out. I spent the entire night staring at the empty plates, pretending it didn't hurt. But they had no idea what I decided at that moment. I'd never again let an empty chair hurt me. What they don't know is that, on that night, I transformed my loneliness into a new family. From scratch. And it was the most unexpected Christmas of my life. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to this channel, because now I'm going to tell you this story from the beginning. And maybe you'll recognize yourself in it too. Today, I'm going to use Dorothy's tablecloth, even knowing that only I will see it on the table. It's 5:30 in the morning on December 24th. I always wake up at this time, even without an alarm clock. That's what happens when you get old, you know. The body has its own clock. First thing I do is take my medications. Blood pressure, cholesterol, that vitamin for my bones, 5 pills every day. Dorothy always kept track of this for me. Now I've got to remember on my own. Have you ever done something knowing it was the last time? It's a strange feeling, like we're saying goodbye to something that hasn't even happened yet. I go to the kitchen and put the coffee on. Strong coffee, the way I learned from my dad. I turn on the radio low. It's company, you know. The announcer's voice talking about traffic, weather, the news, makes me feel like the world's still turning out there. The honey-glazed ham's been in the fridge since the day before yesterday, all seasoned. I let it marinate with garlic, onion, those spices Dorothy taught me. These things aren't done at the last minute, right? Those with experience know. The dessert's ready too. I made bread pudding last night. Came out smooth, no lumps. Dorothy would have been proud. I grabbed the newspaper that Frank leaves at the door. Frank's wearing a Santa hat today. Even he's getting into the spirit. Good morning, Bob. It's going to be a nice Christmas today. I smile and agree. No need to tell him it'll just be me and the silence. Back home I smell other Christmas dinners starting. From 201 comes the smell of roast. Mrs. Helen from 305 must be making stuffing, judging by the sound of the skillet. The whole building's getting ready to celebrate. Only my apartment's still in suspense. I open the oven and put in the ham. It'll need about 3 hours to be just right. Enough time to get everything set up perfectly. From the apartment next door, I hear Mrs. Pat's TV already on. Volume high. She must be getting a bit deaf. Sound of pots clanging too. She's getting an early start today. I go to the living room cabinet to get the tablecloth. It's there in the back, stored with tissue paper and lavender sachets. When I bend down to get it, I feel my back complaining. This lower back isn't what it used to be. I remove the tissue paper carefully. Dorothy's tablecloth still perfect. 30 years of embroidery done on Sunday afternoons, her with glasses on the tip of her nose, fingers running over the tiny stitches. Bob, stop complaining that it's taking too long. It's meant to last a lifetime, she used to say. Funny, she didn't say whose lifetime it'd be. I run my hand over the embroidery. Each little flower, each little green leaf. You can feel the love in every stitch. The mothball smell tightens my chest, but it's a good tightness. It's the smell of memory. I hesitate at the kitchen door. Is it worth using the good tablecloth just for me? Wouldn't it be better to save it for a special occasion? But then I think, what occasion will be more special than Christmas? Even if it's just mine. I spread the tablecloth on the small table. It's too big, the corners almost touch the floor. In the old house it fit perfectly on the 8-seat table. Here it seems to be suffocating the little table, but it looks beautiful. It looks festive. The elevator keeps going up and down. People arriving with presents in hand, suitcases, kids running in the hallway. It's Christmas Day. Everyone's in a hurry to get somewhere, except me. I take 8 plates from the cabinet and place them one by one on the table. Each plate makes noise echoing through the silent kitchen, the sound of a celebration preparing, or at least trying to prepare. Each place has its story. There, to my right, was always Mike's. Since he was little, he insisted on sitting there. "Why here, son?" I used to ask. "Because it's next to Daddy." Today, he's 42 years old and doesn't have time to sit next to me. Sarah always wanted the spot facing the window. "I want to see if it's going to rain," she used to say when she was a child. Now she lives far away and only sees my window through photos I send on my phone. The grandchildren. Oh, the grandchildren. Emma always wanted to sit between her grandparents. Here in the middle of love, she used to say in that thin voice. Jake liked the end. To have elbow room. When was the last time they were actually here? I grabbed my phone to look at old photos. I struggle with these tiny buttons. Technology wasn't made for old fingers. I find a photo of little Emma licking the stuffing spoon. Seems like yesterday, but she must be about 15 now. Does she still like to lick spoons? Does she still remember Grandpa? The phone sits there on the counter, silent. I check if it's charged, if the volume's up. What if they call and I don't hear it? I go back to the table and finish placing the plates. Weight of the plates, sound of silverware, shine of glasses on the embroidered tablecloth. Everything just like Christmases before, except it's nothing like before. 10 in the morning. The ham's been in the oven for 4 hours, the smell spreading through the house. Good smell, festive smell. Too bad a party of one isn't a party. Time to make the stuffing. I chop the onion real fine, the way Dorothy taught me. You've got to cry making stuffing, Bob, otherwise it won't taste good. Well, I am crying, but I don't know if it's just because of the onion. The bacon in the skillet makes that nice sound, little fat crackling. Next door, I hear Mrs. Pat also working with pots. We're cooking at the same time, each in our own place, but both alone. I add the breadcrumbs gradually, stirring constantly. My hands still know how, even though they're shakier than they used to be. Some things you don't forget, right? I'm making it just like you taught me, honey, I whisper to the pan. I remember the last Christmas we made together 3 years ago. Dorothy was already weak from the treatment, but insisted on guiding me from her chair. A little more salt. Now stir more slowly. It was the last stuffing we made together. She knew it was the last, even without saying anything. I turn off the heat and taste it. It's good. It's the way she liked it. Noon. I had just a banana for lunch to save room for dinner. An old man's stomach can't handle too much food, and today I want to eat properly at the right time. I put on that Angela Maria record that Dorothy loved. Silent night, filling the house, like in the old days. Her voice still gives me chills. I start to set up the Christmas lights I bought last week. They were there in the corner, still in the bag. I thought about not putting them up this year. What's the point of Christmas lights in a house without celebration? But Dorothy always said, it's to make the heart happy, Bob. Christmas without lights isn't Christmas. I hang the little lights around the window, one by one. When I plug them in, the room fills with colorful dots. It looks beautiful. It looks like Christmas, even if it's just for me. Outside, the windows of other apartments are also full of lights. People getting ready, presents being wrapped, children shouting with joy. The whole building's celebrating. Only my apartment has lights, but no celebration. 2 in the afternoon. The phone's still quiet there on the nightstand. They always called in the morning in other years. Dad, what time should we come? Do we need to bring anything? This year, only silence. I check my cell phone for the 10th time. Is it working? I call myself from the landline. It rings normally. It's just that nobody wants to call. I take from the drawer the presents I bought for the grandchildren. A car for Jake, a doll for Emma. They're there stored, waiting. Will they like them? Do they still like these things? Have you ever bought a present for someone who won't come get it? It's a weird feeling, hope and sadness mixed together. 3 o'clock, the sun's already changing position outside, getting more yellow. Christmas afternoon has a different light, more golden, light of nostalgia. I take the ham out of the oven to check. It's getting golden, shining, perfect. Just like the old days, except back then there was someone to compliment it. Wow, Dad, how do you always manage to make this ham so delicious? Sarah always said. Today only I'll know if it turned out good. 4 o'clock. From upstairs comes the sound of people arriving. Mr. Johnson's party starting early. His place always gets crowded with so much family. Every year it's like this. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. A real celebration. I sit in the armchair and look at the set table. Dorothy's tablecloth shining under the chandelier light, the 8 plates waiting, the glasses gleaming. A party table waiting for a party that might not happen. Might. Who am I kidding? Deep down, I already know they're not coming. From the hallway comes the sound of elevator, people talking, children running. Everyone's in a hurry to get somewhere today. everyone except me. Have you ever wanted to erase everything and pretend the day doesn't exist? To take down the table, put away the tablecloth, turn off the lights and pretend it's not Christmas? I felt that urge now, but I looked at Dorothy's embroidery and heard her talking in my ear. Do it right, Bob. Do it with love. All right, sweetheart. I'll do it right to the end. 5 in the afternoon and the first blow comes through WhatsApp. It's Sarah. Beep. Dad, Tyler woke up with a fever today. Doctor said not to go out. Better not risk it, right? You understand. Love you. I read it 3 times. Of course I understand. A sick child can't go out. But deep in my chest, a voice whispers, is it true or just an excuse? I respond quickly before she notices I took too long. Of course, honey. Health first. Hope Tyler feels better. I put the phone on the counter and stand there in the kitchen. The silence weighs more now. From upstairs I hear loud laughter. Mr. Johnson's party heating up. Deep down I kind of already knew. We always know when people are pulling away, even when we pretend we don't. 6:30. Second blow. The phone rings and it's Mike. Dad, how are you doing? Fine, son, and you guys? So, Dad, Jen isn't feeling well. I think it was something she ate yesterday. She's kind of under the weather, you know how it is. The hand holding the phone starts to shake. Not from nerves. That's just what happens when you get old. But it seems like the shaking gets worse when we get bad news. Oh, I see. But as soon as she feels better, we'll drop by, okay? Maybe tomorrow or the day after. Maybe. That word that means nothing and hurts so much. All right, Mike. You're not upset, are you, Dad? What kind of question is that? Of course I'm upset. But I can't say that. Come on, son. Health's more important. That's right. You're the best dad in the world. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you, too. I hang up and stand there in the living room. The wall clock goes tick-tock, tick-tock. Same sound as always, but today it sounds like a drum beating in my chest. I sit in the armchair and look at the set table. 8 places, embroidered tablecloth, everything shining. A party table waiting for a party that won't happen. Did they plan this? Did they talk beforehand? What excuse are you going to make up? Stop it, Bob. Don't think like that. They're my children. They love me in their own way, but it hurts. Oh, how it hurts. 7 o'clock. Dinner time in other apartments. I hear the sound of toasts upstairs, people talking loudly, children asking for dessert. Down here, just me and the sound of my own footsteps. I go to the kitchen and serve myself. Golden ham, fragrant stuffing, colorful salad. I put everything on my plate, the only one that'll have food today. Before sitting, I run my hand over Dorothy's tablecloth. I feel each little stitch of embroidery, each little flower she made thinking of both of us together. You knew this day would come, didn't you, darling? I sit in my chair. The first forkful has no taste. It's good. I know it is. I made it with love, seasoned it right. But food alone has no flavor. It's like other people's joy was the main seasoning. I chew slowly, looking at the empty chairs. There should be Mike, complaining about work. Sarah should be telling about the kids' news. The grandchildren should be fighting over who gets to scrape the pudding dish, but there's only silence. And me chewing a celebration that should be family. Have you ever eaten a celebration alone? It's worse than not eating anything, because each forkful reminds you of what should be and isn't. I stop eating and look at the clock. 7:30. In other years, at this time, the house was full of laughter, conversation, the good sound of people together. Today there's only the tick-tock of the clock and the sound of Mrs. Pat's TV coming through the wall. I think about taking everything down, put away the tablecloth, wash the plates that weren't even used, pretend today's an ordinary day. But then I remember Dorothy in the hospital, already weak, holding my hand. Bob, you're gonna have to learn to do things alone, but don't be sad. Do it with love, as if I were right there beside you. She knew. She always knew this day would come. I wipe my face with the napkin. I'm not crying, it's just the air conditioning drying out my eyes. At least that's what I tell myself. 8 at night. I just finished putting away the leftover food, which was almost everything. I washed my solitary plate, dried it, put it away in its place. The kitchen's silent again, as if nothing had happened. I hear the building getting quieter too. One party after another ending, people leaving, elevator going down with satisfied families. I sit in the living room armchair and look at the Christmas lights blinking in the window. Beautiful, colourful, cheerful. Lying. Just when I think about turning everything off and going to sleep, knock, knock, knock. A knock at the door. Timid, almost giving up. I stop and listen. Did I imagine it? Knock, knock, even softer, like the person on the other side had changed their mind. I get up slowly and go to the door. Who could be knocking at this hour? On Christmas Day? I look through the peephole. It's Mrs. Pat from the apartment next door. She's holding a covered dish with a kitchen towel, and her eyes are red. I stand there with my hand on the doorknob. I wasn't sure if I should open it. Does she need something? Did something happen? But then I think worse than being alone is refusing company. I take a deep breath and open the door. Good evening, Bob. Good evening, Mrs. Pat. Everything all right? She stands there in the hallway holding the dish. Seems like she's looking for the right words, like someone about to apologize for bothering. I made too much French toast, as always. She gives an awkward little laugh. And I thought maybe you'd want some company for dinner, or for what's left of dinner. I look at her and understand everything without needing to ask anything. The red eyes, the dessert dish, the hesitant knock. She also spent the day waiting for people who didn't come. You too, right, Mrs. Pat? Me too. No need to explain anything more. Loneliness recognizes loneliness in the dark. Of course, Mrs. Pat. Please come in. It'll be wonderful. She enters slowly, looking at the apartment like it's the first time. She stops when she sees the table set with the embroidered tablecloth. Oh my, what a beautiful tablecloth. Did you make it? No, it was my wife. A long time ago. She had magic hands. Look at that delicate embroidery. Must have taken so much work. I get a clean plate from the cabinet and place it on the table next to mine. She sits down slowly, still holding the dish like it was treasure. I also set a table, she confesses quietly. Table for 4 people, my 2 sons and the grandchildren. But yours didn't come either. David had to work. Hospital shift, you know how it is. Lisa went to her mother-in-law's in Denver. Said next year she'll organize better. We look at each other and smile. A smile half sad, half relieved. The same excuses, the same promises that don't mean anything. I'm so glad you came, Mrs. Pat. I was here eating alone, and food alone has no taste. I know exactly what you mean. I made a bunch of things and couldn't eat hardly anything. I go get what's left of the dinner. Ham still warm, fragrant stuffing, fresh salad. I serve her a plate while she uncovers the dish. The most beautiful French toast I've ever seen appears. Golden, shining sugar and cinnamon on top like sweet snow. Good heavens, what beautiful French toast. Oh, it's my mother's recipe. I always make it at Christmas, even if it's just for me. Old habit. We start eating and a miracle happens. The food has taste again. The ham's flavorful, the stuffing's just right. Conversation flows naturally, like water down a hill. How long have you lived here? 5 years. After George died, the kids thought it'd be better for me to come to a smaller place. Mum, you can't stay alone in that big house. I also came here after Dorothy passed away. 3 years now. I sold the house because it was too big for me alone. We keep talking and discovering that our stories are twin sisters, widowhood, children who grew up and left, grandchildren we only see in WhatsApp photos. Mrs. Pat, I've got wine here at home. Would you like a glass to toast? I'd love to. It's been a while since I had wine. I go get the wine I'd been saving for months. Cheap wine from the supermarket, but today it seems like French champagne. Merry Christmas, Mrs. Pat. Merry Christmas, Bob. We toast and laugh. First real laugh I've had today. Good sound of people who aren't alone anymore. You know what idea I just had? I say while serving the French toast. How about we do a different New Year's? We could invite other neighbors who also stay alone during holidays. Oh, what a wonderful idea. Mr. Williams from 302 always stays alone too, and Mrs. Helen from 305, poor thing. We could have a community dinner. Everyone brings something, just like a real family. I'd love that. It's been so long since I had someone to talk to at a real celebration. I finish eating, looking at Mrs. Pat. She's really smiling now. Her eyes aren't red anymore. And I feel different inside too. Less empty, less abandoned. After dessert, I help her take the dish back to her apartment. At the door, she stops and looks at me with affection. Thank you so much, Bob. It's been a while since I had a Christmas like this, with real company. Thank you, Mrs. Pat. You saved my night. You saved my Christmas. We'll talk tomorrow then, to organize this New Year's for the forgotten ones. You bet. It's going to be beautiful. I return to my apartment and look at the table. 2 dirty plates, wine glasses, French toast crumbs, signs that someone was here, that it wasn't just another night alone. I grab my phone and, after pressing about 3 wrong buttons, manage to create a WhatsApp group. 3rd floor neighbors. I add Mrs. Pat's number that she just gave me. I send the first message. Everyone, how about we organize a New Year's together? In a few minutes, the responses start coming. Mrs. Pat. I love it, Mr. Williams. Count me in, Mrs. Helen. What joy. I sit in the armchair and look at Dorothy's tablecloth still on the table. I run my hand over the delicate embroidery, feeling each little stitch she made with so much love. You knew, didn't you, honey? You always knew I wouldn't stay alone forever, that I'd find people along the way. The silence now is different. It's not empty. It's full of possibility, of tomorrow, of people I'm still going to get to know better. Family isn't just who's born with us. Sometimes it's who we find when we least expect it. Sometimes they live next door and we didn't even know. And you there listening to me. Have you discovered that sometimes family's closer than we imagine? Have you noticed that shared loneliness becomes company? Tell me where you're listening from. I bet there are more people going through this than we think. In the old days, it seemed like time never passed. Today, it passes too fast. But you know what? There's still time to find good people along the way. Next year, the table will be full again, even if it's with people I'm still getting to know. People who, like me and Mrs. Pat, are also looking for a place to sit at life's table. Dorothy's tablecloth will be ready to welcome whoever comes. She was always generous like that. And maybe that's exactly what she wanted when she embroidered each little stitch. That one day this tablecloth would bring together people who need company. Maybe Christmas isn't over yet. Maybe it's just beginning.